Hiya. Hiya. This is my face.
Procrastinating now.
Hello everybody, welcome to another video. This is my face. I don't show my face very often, but I just thought, I don't know, I'm just gonna try and start poking it in every now and then. You might be seeing it a bit more often, or I might hate this and never do it again, but this is my face for now. We'll see how it goes, but here's a painting that I did, and I show the whole process of this being created in this video. It's quite far in the distance right now, so it's probably just a blur, but I'm really proud of it. It's probably one of my best illustrations I think I've ever done, to be honest. So in this video I'm showing the process from start to finish, from just initial sketches in my sketchbook to try and figure out like a composition and just like actually figuring out what I wanted to draw, and then how that was developed into a more of a refined sketch, and then how that again was developed further into like figuring out the colours, and then finally working on this, which all of it gets shown in this video. Most of it is just painting this. The other stuff I didn't really film much of. I hope you enjoy the video, and a normal voiceover Emily will be with you in a second. Yes, this face is temporary. Don't know if I'll show it all the time. Enjoy the video. Okay, so like I mentioned before in my little intro, here are the thumbnail sketches I did to figure out what I wanted to do for this painting. I knew I wanted to do something fairy related with mushrooms, because I've just kind of been in a bit of a mushroom mood lately. If you watched my last YouTube video, you'll know I'm in a mushroom sort of mindset. I got mushrooms on the mind, and I've been wanting to do a big illustration for a while. So I thought, you know what, I'll plan it out. I'll actually spend some time, thinking of a good composition. So I did some thumbnails first, came up with this, which I then, obviously sketched a lot nicer. So this is the final sketch that I did. It took me an entire day just to do this one sketch, because I just wanted it to be perfect, really. Spent a lot of time rubbing out and redrawing things to figure out like where exactly I wanted everything to go, to make for a nice composition which kind of led your eyes up to the focal points of the fairies. And I wanted it to be just very busy, but at the same time not so busy that you didn't know where to look. I wanted there to be a clear point where it's like, oh right, this is where I need to look, which is kind of the fairies. And I hope that I did that in this piece through kind of the lighting. So yeah, you can see here I was planning all the colours out digitally on Photoshop first. You can see like I made where the fairies are really yellow, hoping that it would like draw your eye so you just know that it's the focal point. These are all the layers, and this is me figuring out the colours. I probably did go into a little bit too much detail for this, really, because it was just, something to help me figure out colours. It's not actually a finished piece. I did go into a little bit too much detail, but I was having fun, so why not? And by doing it digitally first, it just meant when it came to the painting stage, it was just smooth sailing. I really enjoyed painting this because I'd kind of already done all the hard work. The sketch was already done, the colours were already figured out. All I had to do was kind of copy what I'd already figured out. So it kind of took all the stress out of it, and I just really enjoyed painting this, so I had a lovely time. So I put down some masking fluid on this painting first. I transferred the sketch to my watercolour paper, like an A4 size. The actual painting itself is A4, but there's extra like rim around the paper, so it's slightly bigger than A4, the actual piece of paper, but the painting itself is A4, in case that's literally the most boring thing I've ever said, but there you go, you now know that. I put down masking fluid first because I knew there would be a lot of places on this painting which I wanted to stay almost white, not fully white. There's not actually anything on this painting which is completely white, but like lighter colours that were amongst darker colours, and it would just be easier to get them covered with the masking fluid so I could paint around it without like having to worry about covering things up. So I covered up the flowers and bits of the fairies, like the wings on the fairies and the white spots within the mushrooms. So yeah, that's what I did. The masking fluid I used, the masking fluid I used is by the brand Winsor & Newton. So are my watercolours, and I love my watercolours. They're the only watercolours I've ever had. I've had them since I was 14, and they're still going strong. Really good value for money, really, when I think about how much I've actually used these. As you can see, when I first start the painting, everything is very, very, very pale. Basically, the first layer of paint I put down is, it's almost invisible. It's that light and that watered down. I approach the painting very delicately because I don't want to risk messing everything up. Watercolour is not very forgiving if you mess up. It's kind of like it's there and you're going to deal with it. So I go very slowly, building up the colour, gradually making it darker and more saturated in the places I need it to be, and that's just how it goes. And that way, because it's so gradual and it's such a slow process, it kind of minimises the mistakes. So yeah, that's just how I do it. I know I could probably be a bit more ambitious with my first sort of initial blobs of paint, and I could probably make them a lot more saturated and darker and closer to the actual colour that I want them to be, but this is just how I've always painted. I've always been very kind of cautious with how I do it, and it's like I'm not rushing. I've got nothing else to do, so I'll happily spend ages putting down like 10 layers over the same spot until I build up the colour that I want, because I enjoy the process. So yeah, that's basically how I do it. There's not really much to say, really. Just building it up darker and darker. Later on, I do include coloured pencils because it's the classic combination for me is my watercolour. I build up the watercolour until I can't build it up no more, and then I come in with my coloured pencils just to add a little bit more colour and a few lines. I don't like to go too line heavy, but I add lines where they're needed, because sometimes you just need a line. But I try to only use them where they really are needed. I use them sparingly. I did want to make this video, I did want to get this video up for last week. If you noticed, if you're eagle-eyed, I didn't post a video last week. I don't know if anyone even noticed, but it's because I got a little bit sick. I caught the virus, so I was out of action for a few days, but I still really wanted to do art, and once I'd kind of gotten over the worst of it, I was straight back to drawing, because I've been wanting to do this for ages. For quite a few months now, I feel, well, no, not months, maybe 1 month. For 1 month now, since my university finished, I've just been doing a lot of small sketches in my sketchbook, which I've been really enjoying, and it's been fun to kind of experiment and just mess around in my sketchbook. But at the same time, I was just itching to do something bigger, and that would take me a good couple days. Like, this took me a whole week really when I think about it, because I did thumbnails one day, then I did my sketch, then I did my colour thing, and then the actual painting itself I did over the course of 3 days. So it was an entire week dedicated to this whole thing. Well, not dedicated, it was on and off. I didn't work on it all day every day, but I've just been missing working on something for a long time, because everything I do in my sketchbook I can kind of get done in 1 day. So I've just been wanting to do something which I really dedicate myself to, and I've been wanting to do something with mushrooms, so I thought, let's combine these two desires together and do a big mushroom painting. Originally this is a bit of a funny story, but I had a dream a few weeks ago about this fairy picnic, and it was just so vivid. I could see it so perfectly, and then I woke up and I was like, oh my god, I need to paint this. So originally I was going to do like a fairy picnic, because I'd seen it in my dream, and in my dream it looked quite nice, so I thought, I'll just recreate this thing I saw in my dream. But when I got really thinking about it, I was like, can I be bothered painting food? No, I'd rather paint nice pretty flowers, because I'm gone a bit flower mad recently. Everything I'm drawing seems to have flowers in it. I kind of glossed over this at the beginning, so I'm just going to talk a little bit more about it now, and that's the thumbnailing process. I showed it very briefly in the beginning. I decided not to film any of it because I wasn't really feeling that well at the time, so I just decided I would do all the preparation stuff off camera and then just show what I did do and then film the actual painting. But for the thumbnailing process, I kind of came up with the composition quite quickly. I only ended up doing like 4 thumbnails, but like, for example, if I was doing this for like a university project, like a final project for university, I would probably do like a good solid 10 thumbnails. I'd really push out the thumbnails, fill up a good 2 pages just with ideas. Even if I knew like the first idea I drew was banging, I would still do lots more, just because they like to see that sort of stuff in university. Because this is just a personal thing for me, and no teacher was going to be looking at it, I thought, you know what, you've come up with a nice idea. You don't need to faff about coming up with other ones just to show that you've done them. Just use the one you've got. That's what I did. And then for the colours, I kind of just did one colour composition study thing, whatever you call it, because again I could just see it so clearly in my head what I wanted this final thing to look like. When it came to the colours, I already kind of knew what I wanted, and if I was doing this for university, I would have done maybe like 5 different colour options just to show that I'd done them. But this isn't for uni, this is just for me. So I did that one colour study. I was like, yep, that gets the job done. I like those colours. I don't need to faff about coming up with other things because I know that this works. So that's a bit more about the thumbnailing process. I very rarely actually sketch, which I know sounds silly because, I do art. I do a lot of art, but really, when I think about it, I very rarely actually sketch just with like a pencil, like I did with my thumbnails at the beginning of this video. Oh, if I keep saying the word thumbnail and you have no idea what it means, it basically is just a very quick, tiny sketch, which is like the scruffiest drawing ever. That's what a thumbnail is. Yeah, but I very rarely sketch. When I do stuff in my sketchbook, I mainly just go straight into the drawing. Like, I'll just put down blobs of colour and just start drawing, because I don't really like sketching, which I know sounds silly. But it's like one of my least favourite things of art. I just wish like the sketching process was already done so I could start actually like colouring and figuring it all out. There's a little thing about me, I don't actually like sketching, so I avoid it a lot. A lot of the time I just go straight in with colour without a sketch even down. Like a lot of the landscapes that I do, I just start colouring. I have no lines, I just colour because I don't really like sketching. I do it when I have to, and it's not like I despise it because it's still art and it's still drawing and I enjoy art, but it's like my least favourite part of art. Anyway, there's some information about me. And moving on to the mushrooms now. I did all the green first just because it was on my palette. So I thought, you know what, I'll just do all the greens first because it saves mixing the colours again and like having to clean my palette. So I got all the greens out the way, and then I went in and added in all the mushrooms, all the reds. Oh, and as soon as I added the red of the mushroom, it was popping. The contrast was there. Yeah, as soon as I added the reds of the mushrooms, I was like, I'm proud of this. This is looking pretty good, in my opinion. I like it. And then after I added in the reds of the mushrooms, it was time to tackle the more of the brown, the cream coloured mushrooms, which I was a little bit scared to paint actually, just because they're colours which I don't mix very often. Like the reds and the orange are colours that I mix loads just because they're like some of my favourite colours. But the browns, I was just a bit cautious because I was just worried. I don't know why I was worried, because I already had the colours figured out, and I could already, I knew that they would work because I'd done the colour thumbnail thing on Photoshop. But for some reason I was still really cautious when I was adding in these browns, so I was like making them super light in the beginning, a lot of layers to build up these tones to like the actual colour I wanted them to be, just because I don't know why. Maybe it's because they weren't like super bright colourful things, and I was worried that like the brown mushrooms would make the piece look kind of dull and boring. But in the end they didn't, because you need the contrast. If everything's really colourful, sometimes it can be a bit too busy and a bit overwhelming, so kind of the brown, more earthy colours of the mushrooms, just, I don't know, add a nice place for your eyes to rest, I suppose, because if I did all the mushrooms red, I think it would have been too much. Just having a few red mushrooms made it really pop, I think. I tried to like really push the designs of my mushrooms to make them look kind of fun and interesting rather than just like how you would expect a mushroom to be drawn. I went onto Pinterest and I actually looked at a bunch of different mushroom types. So this one that I'm painting now, like I wouldn't be able to just come up with that from my head. I had to like look at mushrooms on Pinterest to figure out, how to draw this one. But I'm really glad that I looked, otherwise I would have just probably drawn all my mushrooms looking exactly the same. But going on Pinterest, actually looking at different mushrooms, helped me try and spice up my painting. Otherwise I would have just drawn all the mushrooms looking the same. They added a bit of variety. oh, this is satisfying, peeling off the masking fluid. It's also quite scary because when I first started peeling it off, I think I was using the wrong technique and it kind of ripped the paper in a few parts, and I was like, oh boo, there's a lot of masking fluid on this, so if it's just going to rip it up, I've kind of ruined the piece. So I went on Google and I actually, typed in how to properly peel off masking fluid without ripping the paper, and I actually learned a proper technique. I actually used my rubber in the end, a rubber eraser, and you just got to very gently rub around the masking fluid area and it just takes it off without actually ripping up the paper, because my technique was just pick it and hope pick it and pray that it doesn't peel the paper, but that just wasn't working. I needed to get the rubber in to do it properly. It did rip up the paper in a few areas where I put it on really thick, like especially on the flowers, like the big areas, like the masking fluid, it was thick on there, so it ripped the paper up a tiny bit, but the paper was so thick that it was fine, like it didn't really affect it, and like you can't even see where the rips are now. I put a lot of pressure on myself when I was painting this piece, which was a little bit unnecessary. I was kind of thinking, right, I've put all this effort into this painting and you don't want it to go to waste, so make this the best painting you ever painted in your life. Basically was how I was thinking. Just a lot of pressure, really? But because I'd already done all that work, it kind of was less pressure because I'd already figured out a lot of the hard decisions, but still I was wanting this to turn out really well, not only because I just wanted it to look nice for me and I want it up on my wall to look nice and pretty, put it in a frame and everything. I also wanted to make it into a print for my art shop for when I do my next shop update, so I also wanted it to look really good for that because I'm very particular about what I turn into prints. I kind of want this next shop update to be kind of my best shop update yet. Even though I had all this pressure on myself, I still enjoyed painting it because I'd already done all the hard work, and I think the pressure kind of paid off because I think this is up there with one of my best paintings. The camera was really struggling to capture it properly. I don't know what was going on. Maybe it's to do with the colours of the piece, I'm not quite sure, but both my all the shots, like the bird's eye view shots, are filmed on my camera, and all the ones from the side I've just filmed on my phone, and both of them were struggling to capture this piece properly. So here's some final shots of it. The close-up shots look quite nice and like it actually does in real life, but when I zoom out and show the whole painting, the camera with the colours, maybe it was struggling to capture it properly. So I went on to Photoshop and spent way too long editing a picture of it so it looked like how it actually looks in real life, just so you can see what I see, because the camera really wasn't doing it justice. So this is what it actually looks like, and I kind of messed up the fairy's face, the one on the left. I messed up her face quite a lot when I was doing the actual painting, just because it was so tiny and the paper was really bumpy, so when I was doing the lines and the pencil, my pencil was just going all over the place. So I fixed the face in Photoshop, and that's the finished painting. I really hoped you enjoyed this video and it wasn't too boring. Maybe you was drawing along with me. Yeah, I'll see you soon. Thanks very much for watching. Bye.